Is pollution the real reason behind palladium's rise? We'll be discussing this and more on Commodities Confidential. Joining me to discuss palladium today is CPM Group's senior commodities analyst, Rohit Savant. He joins me from New York. Rohit, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
So Rohit, what an excellent time to be talking about palladium, the metal hitting a 17-month high this week. And usually when we speak palladium, we look to Russia and the supply issues there. We look to South Africa and labor constraints there. But one issue that we might be overlooking is air quality in Beijing. How might this be playing a role in palladium's rise?
Emission standards and air quality are probably one of the strongest driving factors for fabrication demand for palladium. Typically what tends to happen is as emission standards get tighter, there's a need to make sure that the autocatalyst performs at a higher level. What tends to happen with the PGMs in the autocatalyst is that they tend to clump up over a period of time, reducing the effectiveness. For this reason, what manufacturers typically tend to do is they tend to bump up the amount of PGMs loaded in these autocatalysts to sort of offset that clumping. And so definitely a tightening in emission standards is positive for all the PGMs, palladium especially, because China is growing to be a large consumer of palladium and autocatalysts.
Rohit, if we back it up a second, is palladium's main use autocatalysts?
Palladium, the largest use for palladium today is autocatalysts. China, even though it has the largest number of vehicles, is not the largest consumer of palladium. The US is still the largest consumer of palladium, and that's because you have a combination of already tightened emission standards and a large volume of vehicles that are being sold.
Has China already started the buying process for palladium in anticipation of these tighter emission controls?
That's an ongoing process. Beijing actually starts with Euro 5 this year, which means auto companies over there are already buying this palladium since probably the end of last year in preparation for that. So you're already seeing a tightening in emission standards. Euro 5 is a pretty high standard as far as emissions are concerned. It's restricted at the moment only for Beijing, and they'd be phasing it in with other parts of the country over the years, but it's starting right now with Beijing.
So Johnson Matthey is expecting palladium supply to drop by 9.9% this year, Rohit, to 5.84 million ounces. That's a 9-year low. Palladium is usually compared to platinum, which is also used in auto catalysts. But do you think palladium provides more of a compelling story because of the supply issue?
Palladium has a lot of factors in its favor, which I would think platinum doesn't. There's a lot of palladium that's used in autocatalysts. There are a couple of things that are happening in the autocatalyst market, and as far as palladium is concerned. One is you've got the US and China, both large gasoline engine markets. Gasoline engine markets typically tend to use palladium in autocatalysts. So you've got these two huge markets which are using a lot of palladium. You've also got substitution of platinum with palladium in diesel autocats, especially in Europe. So you've got that sort of new source of demand over the past 5 or 6 years, which has been growing. And in the case of the US, which has sort of been ignored to some extent, you are seeing an increase in demand. And we possibly see US demand this year in line with what we saw as much as it was prior to the recession. So probably levels seen in 2007, 2006, that's what you're probably going to see this year. So you've got the US, which is still showing growth and is going to be probably selling about 16 million vehicles, light duty vehicles this year. You've got China, which saw a sharp increase in auto sales in January. It's a little skewed, the number from China, just because of the timing of the Lunar New Year, but it's still strong growth. Another thing that people tend to ignore in the case of China is, yes, vehicle sales grew by 4% last year, but that growth was on top of 18 million cars being sold. So it's growth from a high base. So a lot of strength from these two markets. In the case of platinum, which is used more extensively in diesel autocats, and diesel vehicles are sold more in Europe than in other parts of the world, there's a bit of softness in demand there. So to answer your question of whether palladium has, whether the fundamentals stack up better from fabrication demand point of view for palladium, yes, they do.
Another news item that came out this week in regards to palladium is Zimbabwe and how we might see a potential supply disruption there. Obviously, Zimbabwe's production pales in comparison to South Africa, but do you still think it could play a factor?
On the supply side, you already have a lot of issues. You have Russia expected to produce less palladium this year. In the case of South Africa, you have issues in terms of labor and safety. And so in addition to all of that, when you have Zimbabwe coming in with this new issue, that's definitely going to constrain supply. And so yeah, it is price supportive, and it is an issue because Zimbabwe is, I believe, the third largest producer of palladium in the world.
Rohit, if we compare palladium to gold now, and if we pull up some 6-month and 12-month returns so we see the comparison, do you think it offers a better value right now for investors?
Palladium definitely has more price supportive fundamentals at the moment. You have the palladium market moving into a deficit over the next several years. The price of palladium was coming off last year, so that gives more potential for investors to have gotten in. In comparison to gold, where there are good fundamentals, but like I mentioned in previous interviews, that's already baked into the price. So you're probably going to see gold prices sort of move sideways at a high level. So from an upside potential, palladium definitely has more upside than gold does.
As we're speaking today, Rohit, the spot price for palladium sits at $768. This is based on Kitco's charts. What's CPM's forecast for the year? On
an annual average basis, actually, we have palladium averaging about $700 for the year. So that's a little lower than what we're seeing today. And that's based on a couple of things. One, prices generally tend to soften during the third quarter. You also have seen a pretty significant run-up in prices, palladium prices already. So unless there's some actual supply disruption or the global economy picks up in a better than expected way, you might see some profit taking or some resistance to palladium prices at present levels. We do expect investors to step in and buy when prices come off, just because the fundamentals are good. So that's basically the thinking behind our expectation for palladium prices for the year.
Rohit, thanks so much for your thoughts today.
Thank you. It was great being here.
And thanks for watching this edition of Commodities Confidential. You can email us any comments or questions at newsfeedback@kitco.com or follow this conversation at Daniela Cambone. Thanks for watching.